These creepy and disturbing fan theories add a new layer to old TV shows. Many of them have been denied by creators, but rewatching the show with these potential hidden plots in mind can create an entirely different viewing experience. Number 10. Dante's Divine Comedy left a lasting impression on Western culture that's still seen in movies, TV shows, and video games to this day. The poem comes in 3 parts, the most famous being the Inferno. The poet Virgil guides Dante through the circles of hell, where he meets many historical and religious figures, making political commentary as he goes. This part in particular has gone on to inspire countless other pieces of fiction. Included in that are modern TV series, which are said to have similarities to either Dante's journey or the depictions of hell itself. Some of these are more obvious than others. The idea that the TV show American Horror Story would have a connection to a poem about hell is not hard to imagine. American Horror Story is an anthology series, with each season self-contained. Many of the storylines have taken inspiration from real-life unsolved mysteries and true crime, but the central storyline to each may be more connected to this centuries-old poem than to any actual true unsolved mystery. The theory was first suggested in 2014, when only the first 4 seasons of the show had been aired. In 2017, it attracted attention again. By now, 7 seasons had aired, and the show had just been renewed for 2 more seasons. The theory was shared among fans, and even posted on the Instagram account of the show's creator. It wasn't a confirmation that this was the original plan, but it was an endorsement of the theory. The next 2 seasons also seem to line up with the Dante's Inferno theory, though the later seasons have not incorporated it. According to the theory, American Horror Story begins as Dante's journey into the underworld did, with a trip through limbo. This is the first layer of hell, a place where the virtuous pagans and people who passed away before they could become Christians were sent. Limbo has often been associated with the in-between state. The people here are denied heaven but aren't punished in hell. The first season of the show also ties into this theme of being in an in-between. It's about people who are trapped between life and the afterlife and cannot move on. The TV show then skips forward to the penultimate layer of hell, fraud. It was here that Dante condemned so-called sorcerers and false prophets, people who were pretending to be something they weren't. The season is about a mental institute that isn't at all what it pretends to be. The titular asylum doesn't help the patients that are in its care, but practices cruel treatments and commits horrifying acts against the people they were supposed to be caring for. Season 3 lines up with the final level of hell, treachery. The season focuses on a coven of witches who betray and fight one another to take the title of the next supreme. Season 4 takes on the theme of greed before Season 5 tackles gluttony. 6 and 7 are tied to anger and heresy respectively. The theory about the 9 circles of hell was fleshed out at this point, and the first 7 seasons were widely agreed upon. That just left lust and violence for the 8th and 9th seasons, and viewers weren't sure how this would be portrayed. Now that the seasons have been released, most believe that Season 8, Apocalypse, is tied to the theme of violence. That would just leave lust for Season 9. American Horror Story continued past the 9 circles of hell, and later seasons seem to be unrelated to this theory, but that hasn't made the strange and disturbing theory about the first 9 seasons any less attractive. Number 9. Even those that never watched the show will know of the TV series Lost. The series ran for 6 seasons, and during that time was one of the most popular shows on TV. Countless mysteries and twists took place during the 121 episodes, leading to complex theories about what's really going on and how the show was going to end. The series finally came to an end in 2010 with the 2-part series finale. It may be one of the most controversial final episodes on TV, with many fans left unsatisfied or confused at the end of the 6-year-old show. For some, the ending of the show is wrapped in a conspiracy theory itself. The series famously started with a plane crash landing on a mysterious deserted island. The passengers survived the initial crash and set about trying to survive life on the island. Things quickly take a supernatural twist, and life on the island gets stranger as the series progresses. Intermixed with flashbacks, flash forwards, and in the final season, a strange flash sideways to an alternative universe, the series could be confusing to follow, and fans were puzzled about what was actually going on. But some believed they had known all along. One of the most popular theories about the show is that the island itself was purgatory. The theory goes that everyone on the plane actually passed away during the crash, and their experiences on the island were part of the afterlife. That could explain why things got progressively weirder as time went on, and there were so many mysteries that would never be solved. The theory became popular early on. Showrunners J.J. Abrams and Damon Lindelof both addressed the rumor at separate times. Abrams called the theory an interesting one and great idea, but insisted that it wasn't what was actually happening. Lindelof was less generous about the theory. The idea that everyone had passed away before the start of the series seems to negate everything that had actually happened within the show. In a finale that some fans found confusing, it revealed that the strange flash sideways scenes, showing an alternate universe where the crash doesn't happen, is actually a sort of purgatory. Everything that happened on the island was real, but the characters created their own purgatory where they would all come together when they eventually passed away. Even the writers insisted that the island was real, and many characters managed to escape and continue their lives back in the real world. Fans were unconvinced. The final scene of the crashed plane on the beach gave fans the impression that nothing that had happened in the show actually happened. The showrunners revealed that the piece of footage was only included as a transition from the actual moments of the show and the advertisements that would be played afterwards. Some fans believe that while the ending of the show proved that Lost wasn't set in purgatory, that wasn't always going to be the case. The theory suggested that the original plan for the series was that everyone passed away in the crash, and this was all part of the afterlife. But when fans realized the twist too quickly, the writers and showrunners decided to change the ending so that there would still be a twist. This would explain why not everything was wrapped up in the finale, and why some clues seemed to lead nowhere. This theory has never been proven, and there's evidence that the purgatory theory was dismissed before the show even aired, but that hasn't deterred some fans. Number 8. When the 4th season of the Netflix show You began to air in 2023, fans were quick to notice the similarities between the creepy psychological thriller and a teen drama that ended more than a decade earlier. But the similarities between You and Gossip Girl go further than a strange stalker tormenting the main character through technology, and some fans believe that the two shows may be more connected in the universe. The premise of Gossip Girl was that of a group of popular teenagers and their friends being stalked and harassed by an anonymous blogger. The titular Gossip Girl knows all about their lives and is revealing their secrets on a public blog. The characters spend 6 seasons trying to get to the bottom of the identity of this mysterious figure, before it's finally revealed to be the main character's love interest, Dan Humphrey. Humphrey is portrayed as an outsider who's trying to protect his girlfriend, Serena, from her friends, who he sees as being a bad influence on her. Even though he risks ruining Serena's life and the lives of the people she cared about, it's portrayed as something that could be forgiven. Everything was done as an act of love, and Humphrey doesn't see any serious consequences for his actions. 6 years after the final season of Gossip Girl came to an end, You was broadcast for the first time. You is told from the perspective of Joe Goldberg, a bookstore owner who becomes obsessed with one of his customers, Blake. He uses technology to stalk Blake and gather information on her, then uses that information to manipulate her into dating him. The story doesn't end well for Blake or her friends, where Humphrey risks ruining the lives of his victims. Goldberg actually takes them, and by the end of the 4th season, he's taken the lives of 18 people. Fans noticed some similarities between other characters. Not only are Humphrey and Goldberg very similar and played by actor Penn Badgley, but their love interests and the people surrounding them are also the same. In both series, Badgley's love interest is a young blonde woman, described as an it girl and very sociable with friends who don't trust her boyfriend. In both series, the love interest has a boyfriend who's portrayed as being terrible for her, making the manipulative Humphrey and Goldberg look much better from her perspective. And in both series, there's a best friend who stands between the victim and Badgley's character. Rather than just repeating tropes that could be found in many different series, fans have suggested that both of Badgley's characters are the same person. Goldberg is simply who Humphrey is 10 years after the events of Gossip Girl. Because he wasn't punished for his actions, he hasn't learned from them. Playing the nice guy and using technology to stalk his desired love interest worked for him, and Goldberg is simply taking it one step further than he did when he was the teenage Dan Humphrey. Number 7. When it comes to people intentionally taking the life of another person, Maine is one of the safest states in the country. But in the world of the 1980s and 1990s TV show Murder, She Wrote, the crime rate would be much higher. Over the course of the 12 seasons, airing between 1984 and 1996, 60 people living in the small town of Cabot Cove lost their lives in a violent manner. Considering the town only has a population of 3,500 people, the rate would make Cabot Cove one of the most dangerous places not just in the United States but in the world. Luckily for residents, the criminals behind each act were quickly apprehended through the sleuthing of mystery fiction writer Jessica Fletcher. But with every person put behind bars, there seems to have been another waiting to take the life of another person. But if fan theories are to be believed, there is nothing lucky about Jessica Fletcher's involvement in any of these cases. For over a decade, the crime show was a staple on TV. It continues to be aired in reruns in countries like the US, UK, and Australia. And even those who weren't alive during the original run are familiar with the premise. Jessica is a retired English teacher who settled down in what was once the quiet town of Cabot Cove to write her novels. She was already a successful novelist by the time the series started. It had 43 books published by the time the series came to an end. Many of those books would be inspired by the crimes Jessica stumbles across in her everyday life. Each episode features the main character becoming involved in another case. Most take place in her hometown, but even when Jessica travels the country on book tours or to visit friends, someone always mysteriously passes away nearby. At no point does she pretend to be a private detective, but a concerned citizen with experience putting herself in the mind of a criminal as part of her writing. In each episode, Jessica manages to solve the mystery, even when the police or other investigators doubt her abilities. On a few occasions, someone notes how strange it is that she seemed to be in the perfect place at the perfect time to solve the case, but the idea isn't investigated further. According to this fan theory, the reason why Jessica was always able to solve the crime is because she was the one behind it. It would be too much of a coincidence for her to stumble across crimes so often, or for her to always be able to crack the case herself. The theory goes that Jessica was the person responsible for the mysteries, and she later got involved in solving the case to deflect attention away from herself. Why Fletcher would commit the crime in the first place varies depending on who the victim is. In later seasons, it's suggested that Jessica herself is the person telling the story as part of one of her novels. It could simply be a case of finding inspiration for her work, or wanting to see if a new idea would work. There have been cases in real life of criminals writing about their own cases, either as journalists covering the crimes for local newspapers, or novelists who claim to take inspiration from the crime. The fact that the actress portraying Jessica Fletcher, Angela Lansbury, was an executive producer on the show helps to feed the idea that her character is not a reliable narrator. Even though Jessica appears to have alibis in each episode, and the actual criminal confesses, this could just be Fletcher editing the narrative to fit the crime drama she's made herself a star in. If the theory were to be believed, Jessica Fletcher would be the most prolific serial killer in TV history. Number 6. A workplace comedy show about an ordinary office-based company is not the sort of place most people would expect a conspiracy theory about an in-universe serial criminal. But those with an interest in the true crime genre know that criminals will normally appear as ordinary people, holding down everyday jobs and keeping up appearances while committing the most horrifying acts in secret. It's fitting then that the mockumentary-style TV show The Office featured one of these strange in-universe mysteries that played out in the background. The Office had been on the air for 5 seasons before the background subplot of the Scranton Strangler first appeared. In the season 6 episode The Delivery, broadcast on March 4th, 2010, characters Pam and Jim welcome their first child into the world. One of their co-workers decides to give them that day's newspaper as a keepsake. The front page of the local newspaper has the headline "Scranton Strangler Strikes Again," and a photo of a home surrounded by police tape. The writers and showrunners decided to develop the storyline further in later episodes. The characters talk about how they would protect themselves from the Strangler, but there's little speculation about who this unknown criminal might be. The story of the Scranton Strangler comes into focus again in season 7. The first episode, Viewing Party, starts with most of the characters gathered around a TV, watching a police chase designed to resemble the infamous O.J. Simpson case. The police are closing in on the Scranton Strangler, and it's assumed that the criminal is finally caught on the same street where the office building is located. Later that season, the office's HR representative, Toby Flenderson, is called up for jury duty on the Scranton Strangler case. The person on trial is found guilty and sentenced to capital punishment. This should have been the end of the Scranton Strangler storyline, but Toby in particular cannot let go of the case. He's convinced that the man he convicted wasn't the real criminal, and almost becomes obsessed with finding out the truth. He later goes on to visit the criminal, revealing his name as George Howard Scubb. That only results in Scubb attempting to strangle him, apparently convincing Toby and everyone else that he really was the infamous criminal. The episode was fittingly titled Moving On, taking place just a few episodes before the series finale. But while the show never mentions the storyline again, it's remained in the minds of fans. Many fans believe that George Scubb was framed, and the real criminal was someone that was part of the show for decades. Toby Flenderson has the most connections with the Scranton Strangler storyline, even before he was called up for jury duty. Toby is an unassuming character with a boring and miserable background. He also is quite obviously having a crush on his coworker Pam. Fans of this theory have suggested that Pam's relationship with Jim triggered Toby's criminal acts. The Scranton Strangler crimes seem to line up with the new events in their relationship. In Viewing Party, the only character mysteriously absent from the car chase scene is Toby, even though they're all sitting at his desk. At one point, Toby's telephone rings, but the person who answers it immediately hangs up. Very few people would have been able to phone Toby's desk directly, and fans believe that it was actually Toby himself calling to either confess or warn his coworkers about the car chase. Another piece of evidence from the scene is the fact that the car in the chase is identical to one seen in the office parking lot in other episodes. It's assumed that the police captured the criminal at the end of the chase, but they never explicitly said this. It could be possible that Toby managed to escape, and George Scubb picked up the blame. Some have suggested that Toby's quest to prove Scubb's innocence could have been out of a guilty conscience, or he may have gone to prison to deliberately make Scubb look guilty. After Toby was attacked, there would be a few who wouldn't believe that Scubb was capable of being the attacker. Toby's actor, Paul Lieberstein, hasn't ruled out the theory and revealed that there were discussions about the Strangler playing a larger role in the series. If it had happened, this long-lasting fan theory could have proven correct. Number 5. The X-Files is one TV show that will be familiar to most conspiracy theorists. Many extraterrestrial or paranormal-related theories will involve secretive and mysterious agents working for the FBI or other government agencies, either to investigate them like in the TV show or to cover them up. The catchphrase "I want to believe," which originated on the show, can now be seen in completely unrelated media, connected to conspiracy theories or extraterrestrials. With the fan base looking for hints that everything isn't as it seems, it's not surprising that there are theories connected to the show. One of the most famous, and one that may have been incorporated into the canon of the series, is that Special Agent Dana Scully is unable to pass away. The theory originated with Season 3 episode Clyde Bruckman's Final Response. It was released in October of 1995, and is supposed to be a Monster of the Week episode, unrelated to the season-long storylines and arcs. It features Scully and her partner Fox Mulder investigating a criminal who's taking the lives of psychics. They recruit the assistance of psychic Clyde Bruckman, who can now see how people pass away. During the episode, Scully asks Clyde how she'll pass away. He simply replies that she won't. The episode's writer, Darren Morgan, intended for the line to be a joke and didn't think the fans would think too much about it. Almost 30 years since the episode aired, it's still a crucial part of X-Files lore. According to the theory, it wasn't until an episode in Season 6, aired 3 years later, that Scully actually gains immortality. In the episode, Bethonie, Scully, and a new partner encounter a man named Felix, who apparently is unable to pass away. He's a crime scene photographer who can detect when people are near the end of their life. As the episode progresses, it's revealed that Felix is 149 years old, and that he was supposed to lose his life in an epidemic decades earlier. But when the Grim Reaper came for him, he looked away. Felix is now apparently unable to pass and is taking photos of people when they're near the end in hopes that he might catch the Grim Reaper and finally look at him. At the end of the episode, Scully's new partner fires a bullet at Felix, which hits both him and Scully. As they lie on the ground waiting to pass, he tells Scully to look away, so that the Grim Reaper will take him instead. She does so and survives the bullet wound, and later doctors remark of how quickly she recovers. If Scully now has the powers that Felix had, it should be impossible for her to suffer any serious wounds or to pass away, unless she finds a way to look at the Grim Reaper. A few episodes later, Scully and Mulder are trapped in a time loop which seems to have been triggered by a bank robbery gone wrong that leads to both the FBI agents losing their lives. It's only when they manage to get out of the bank unharmed that the time loop is broken. The cause of the time loop is never specified in the episode. According to fans of the conspiracy theory, the reason why the time loop occurs is because Scully is immortal. The X-Files continued to run for another 5 seasons, including 2 revival seasons. As she's the main character, it's not surprising that Scully hasn't passed away. That could simply be because she's such an important character, and the show wouldn't exist without her. But according to fans of the theory, there's an in-universe reason for her immortality. Show creator Chris Carter has backed the theory, though the only time it was explicitly acknowledged in the show was in a joke line that the writer didn't intend to be taken seriously. Number 4. When it comes to long-running mystery shows like the teen drama Pretty Little Liars, there are always going to be countless theories about what the answer to the central mystery might be. Normally, only one answer can be correct, but if the final reveal is done well, all fans are left satisfied with the solved theory. But sometimes the answer leaves fans feeling a little off, especially if all the clues are more fitting to another character or solution. In the case of Pretty Little Liars, the main mystery surrounded the identity of A, who'd been stalking and torturing the main character for hours. After 7 years, many fans were expecting the final reveal to confirm a theory that had been floating around for a while, that one of the main characters, Arya, was the mysterious A. The reveal didn't go that way, leaving unanswered questions about clues that seemed to point in Arya's direction. The first season of Pretty Little Liars began with Arya returning to the fictional town of Rosewood. It was only after her return that A began to torment their victims. This could easily have been a coincidence, but the theory suggests that it was Arya's return that triggered the events of the show. From the first season, there were signs that Arya was possibly keeping more secrets than other characters. She cycled through multiple different phones, but would go back and forth between devices over the course of the season. She also contacted another character from an unknown number, something that only the mysterious A does otherwise. Fans pointed out other similarities between Arya and A, like the fact that they're both left-handed. Arya also writes her name in one scene with handwriting that eerily matches the unknown individual. Clothing is another area where fans have spotted clues that should have pointed to Arya being A. When the character finds A's lair, they discover a small collection of dolls dressed like them. That is, except for the doll that represents Arya. Instead, this doll holds a hooded sweater similar to the one that A wears. In another scene, the main characters believe that A will be wearing a black swan outfit to a party. Arya's outfit at the party is a vibrant black and red striped dress. While not typically what someone would think of when imagining Black Swan, it's the same design that's seen on a poster for a ballet in the show. When a fan made a social media post commenting on how hideous the outfit was, the show's creator said there was significance to the dress. This wouldn't be the only time that the show's creator, Marlene King, gave clues about A's identity that seemed to point to Aria. When one fan asked for a clue about A's identity, King simply replied #BigA, a nickname that Aria had been called on the show. Another time, King replied with lightning bolts and lip emojis, both associated with Aria. At various points in the show, Aria seems to destroy evidence that could have led to A's identity, but together, fans were convinced that Aria was the person behind A, or at least one of the people. It was possible that she was simply part of the A team, a collection of people working for the main A. When neither of these theories turned out to be true, it was proposed that the show's runners had changed their minds. There were too many clues that didn't make sense unless they were nods to Aria being A. These now sit as unanswered questions that may never be explained. Number 3. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a dark comedy series that's been running for 16 seasons. The show has become a cult classic and has attracted many fan theories to try to piece together clues and solve potential mysteries about the future of the show. But one of the most disturbing theories doesn't relate to just one character or moment, but the entire premise of the show and how it will end. One of the ongoing mysteries that fans have been trying to solve about the show revolves around a tiny moment that appears in each episode. Even though the episodes are usually standalone and the stories don't tie into one another, each episode begins with a time and day stamp, letting the viewers know when the events are taking place. According to fans, the timestamps aren't written in the same font seen elsewhere in the opening credits, and more closely resemble something like a typewriter. Fans have speculated about what the purpose of this could be. One theory is that it was just designed to show how the main characters' lives don't fit a typical 9-to-5 workday, and they're able to get into shenanigans at any time of the day and any day of the week. But others think that the timestamp might have a larger purpose and be part of the framing device of the whole show. One of the recurring plots of the show is that the main characters are terrible people who do immoral and illegal things for their own gain. Sometimes these are relatively harmless, but some of the schemes that the group get into could have lasting damage on the people they love. For example, one theory suggests that the character of Charlie suffered brain damage after a scheme in an early episode, which led to his intelligence gradually decreasing as the show progressed. Some theories suggest that not all the crimes the gang have committed are those that we see on screen. Another theory suggests that the character of Dennis is actually a serial killer. The character has done some extremely creepy things, and seems to have an anger that isn't ever far from the surface. The chain of crimes that he's committed on screen hasn't gone down this dark path, but fans think it might be possible that this could be revealed as having happened off-screen. All this would tie into the theory that the show is a flashback, being told in court when the group's crimes finally catch up with them. The theory suggests that the series will end with the characters all being brought to court, either in one major class action lawsuit by the city of Philadelphia as a whole, or after a major crime leads to everything else they've done being unraveled. The time, day, and location at the start of each episode is a hint that the events are being recounted in court by someone on a witness stand. Some episodes only feature the main cast of characters, so fans have theorized that they're actually testifying against one another. That wouldn't necessarily be out of character for the group, with each wanting to look out for themselves. If it's being told through these unreliable narrators, this could tie into other theories about the show, such as the characters not actually looking like the actors that portray them. The theory makes this dark comedy show even darker. It hasn't been confirmed or denied by the cast or crew, and with the show still running for the foreseeable future, it may be a theory that won't be proven either way for a while. Number 2. Fans of the medical drama House will be no stranger to themes of hallucinations. From the very first season, it's clear that the main character's perspective can't always be trusted as being accurate. But one fan theory suggests that the main character himself may simply be a figment of someone else's imagination. The show's titular main character, Gregory House, is known for being unconventional and unethical, but able to solve the most unusual medical problems. He's something of a wild card, and other than his ability to diagnose even the most rare diseases, he's everything a doctor shouldn't be. House relies on pain medication, shows little empathy for his patients, and has improper relationships. On the other hand, when introduced in the first episode, fellow Dr. James Wilson seems to be the exact opposite. He follows the rules, treats patients with typical conditions, and doesn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. According to this fan theory, House is nothing more than a figment of Wilson's imagination. The fan theory suggests that House is everything that Wilson wants to be, but can't be due to his need to follow the rules and keep his respectable job. Even though Wilson appears to be an ordinary, rule-abiding doctor, it's clear that there's something else not far beneath the surface. From the first episode, we see Wilson act out. He breaks a mirror in a fit of rage, something that seems to more closely follow House's character than his own. As the season progresses, Wilson becomes more like House, displaying more unethical behavior. That could simply be a case of the two influencing one another as they become closer friends. But the theory suggests that could just be Wilson gaining more confidence in being his true self. There are many instances within the show where people turn out to be a figment of another person's imagination. This is, for the most part, due to medical conditions, or in House's case, his problem with pain medication. The people are normally real individuals who aren't actually there, but there's no reason why an illusion couldn't be an entirely new character that doesn't exist outside of someone's mind. The main problem with this theory is, of course, that people other than Wilson interact with House. Other characters can clearly distinguish between the two people, but that could be a sign that this isn't a typical hallucination. The situation could be more similar to the case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In the famous novel, a reputable doctor creates a potion to give himself the appearance of another individual. He then uses his disguise of Mr. Hyde to commit acts that a respectable person wouldn't be able to do. The crimes committed by Mr. Hyde are things that the doctor wanted to do but didn't want attached to him. In this case, it could be that the unethical acts committed by House are actually being committed by Wilson. House is simply what happens when Wilson doesn't hold himself to the high standards that he should as a doctor. The theory is outlandish and probably not what the writers were aiming for when they wrote the show, but it puts a more unique perspective on the TV show for those rewatching it. Number 1. AMC's adaptation of the comic book series The Walking Dead has gone on to become one of the biggest TV shows in recent years. The story of survivors in a zombie apocalypse has gone on to inspire other pieces of media, as well as countless fan theories. One of the mysteries that neither the TV show nor its source material has ever revealed is how the apocalypse started. There's no discussion about a Patient Zero, or a place where the disturbing walkers first appeared. Instead, the show is more concerned about what's happening in the moment, and what might happen in the future. There are a few different fan theories about where the walkers might have come from, tying the TV series to other zombie apocalypse movies. One piece of media that seems less likely to be tied to the show is the crime drama Breaking Bad, but there's more evidence than there may seem. Breaking Bad was another original from the AMC network and began airing 2 years before The Walking Dead. The show follows a science teacher who turns to a life of crime after a cancer diagnosis. Walter White creates a substance more pure than anything else in the market, which makes it a distinctive blue color and very attractive to those who deal with or use illegal substances. The show ends without anything paranormal or science fiction related happening, and is overall a very different type of show to The Walking Dead. But they were both the biggest hits on TV when they aired, and there were references to the earlier show within The Walking Dead. The first and biggest clue that the two shows occur in the same universe came early in The Walking Dead's run. When one character is in need of urgent medical care, another shows up with a bag of medicine and other substances. At the bottom of the bag is a familiar blue substance. The character refers to it as crystal, and when describing the criminal who gave it to his brother, he described a man very similar to that of the Breaking Bad character Jesse Pinkman. There are other instances of props from one show appearing in the other. This could simply be the studio reusing old props, but there may be an in-universe reason for things like a coffee machine and a distinctive car that appear in both shows. The theory states that it was White's invention, referred to as Blue Sky, that was responsible for the zombie apocalypse. Other criminals tried to recreate Blue Sky but couldn't get the recipe right, and created a contaminated version that would turn the people who took the substance into walkers. It wouldn't be the first time illegal substances have been connected to so-called zombies. There are many news reports in real life about people who began to act like zombies after taking something they shouldn't have. Some believe that the Breaking Bad character Gus Fring could be the Walking Dead universe's Patient Zero. Fring was another criminal dealing with illegal substances who crossed white. He meets a gruesome end, but lives just a little longer than his wounds suggest he should have. The badly wounded Fring takes a few steps, walking, before collapsing onto the ground. Fans have theorized that he could have taken the contaminated blue sky, which led to him being able to withstand his wounds. Both shows have now concluded without the theory ever being proven, but that doesn't mean that a spin-off couldn't confirm that at the very least, the two shows take place in the same doomed universe. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.